Agatha. If you played the Kanto Pokemon games, you know the name. One of the Elite Four members, meant to be the strongest four. Even though that doesn't mean much. Her specialty is ghost types, but it seems more like poison types. But I feel like Agatha is the strongest of them all, and there's only one way to show it. The Pokemon challenge is to use Agatha's team, beat the Elite Four and the champion in a hardcore Nuzlocke in Fire Red. But who is your favorite Kanto Elite Four member? Please let me know. The rules are in the description, but in short, if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead, and we have a level cap to the next gym leader's ace. I don't want to sound rude, but Agatha isn't the youngest anymore. And this kind of journey can be quite taxing. So let's ask a buddy of mine. Yo Dialga, yo, help me out a bit here. Okay, that should do it. The run begins and obviously we cannot choose a starter, which Agatha used. Usually that's fine, but we don't have an encounter before facing Brock, which means we change the starter Pokemon to Ghastly. We choose Ghastly since Gengar is Agatha's ace. And we call it Goomba, because I like Mario games. The rival choose Squirtle, because I think Blastoise might be the biggest issue for Agatha's team. The battle against the rival doesn't matter, since Ghastly is a ghost type and Squirtle only has a normal type damaging move, which means we win the battle without losing any HP. After that very hard battle, we move up Road 1 into Viridian City to obtain the parcel for Professor Oak. After returning to the lab, we receive the Pokédex and some Pokéballs, which means we can officially start the Nuzlocke, but we won't receive any encounter for now. Back in Viridian City, we move up Road 2 into Viridian Forest to level up. Leveling up Goomba is very easy. Even though we can't hit Rattata or Pidgeys because of the normal type, we can easily beat the Pokemon here because Caterpie can't hit us and Weedle has Poison Sting, which is not very effective. Agatha's team is very annoying, and that's what we're going for. After leveling up a lot, we can leave Viridian Forest to get to Pewter City. Here's the first gym leader, Brock, and that battle is very interesting. Geodude can't hit us at all, and we grind it down with Lick. The level up is okay because the level cap is only active at the start of the battle. But now comes the problem, Onix. Onix has only one move which can hit us, and that is Rock Tomb. And that's the only move he will ever use against us. As the most annoying Elite Four member, we have only one strategy to beat it. First, we use Hypnosis and then Curse to beat Onix after some turns. But Hypnosis misses and we get hit by Rock Tomb. Now we are slower and get hit by another Rock Tomb. With below half HP we can't use Curse without losing Goomba as well. So we lose and have to reset. Thankfully that's very early on, so we receive Goomba, the Ghastly, and get back to Brock. Beat his Geodude and try again against Onix. Pressing Hypnosis and miss again. That's sad, but since we lost anyway, let's use Curse. Of course, no Onix misses with Rock Tomb. Thank you. That means another reset. We receive Goomba, move to Viridian City, and challenge Brock again. Geodude has no chance again, and now comes the important part. Pressing on Hypnosis and Goomba hits. Don't celebrate too early, it needs to stay asleep for some turns. Using Curse to start the damage, and then hit with some licks and we win. Brock is defeated, the first gym leader done, and we receive the Boulder Badge. If you believe it or not, that's not the only hard battle in this one, and I mean, of course not. After beating Brock we can move on, but before that we buy some Pokeballs. We move west to Road 3 and Road 4 to reach Mount Moon. At Mount Moon we can find a new encounter, which is Zubat. We catch it and now lucky too, the Zubat is part of the team. While we're at Mount Moon we find TM46 Thief, very good move, especially for Goomba. At the end of the cave is a nerd, protecting some fossils. Obviously we beat him up and steal a fossil. Guess which one? Praise Lord Helix. Leaving the cave we find ourselves on Road 4, which leads to Cerulean City. But back on Road 4 we can find another encounter, which is Ekans. The snake is not very strong in my opinion, but we receive Intimidate on top of it, which makes it very good again. With that we catch it and Koopa, the Ekans, is in our team. As usual we challenge the rival on Nugget Bridge before battling the gym. He starts with Pidgeotto against Koopa, but Koopa starts only for Intimidate and will be switched out immediately for Goomba. After several sand attacks we are forced to switch out again into Koopa for another Intimidate. And back to Goomba it is, beating the bird in some turns. Next is Abra, but it can't do anything with only Teleport. Squirtle is next and I thought it can't do anything, but after some withdrawal, the turtle chooses to use Water Gun, which nearly destroyed Goomba. I was quite shocked, but Squirtle was defeated right after that. That leaves the rival with only Rattata left, and Rattata doesn't have any moves which can hit Goomba. So we beat it after some turns using Thief, the only move Goomba can use which can hit normal types. The rival is defeated, and the area behind Nugget Bridge is free to explore. We move north onto Route 24, then east onto Route 25 to reach Bill's house. It's only some random nerd, completely irrelevant to the story, but he gives us the ticket for SSN, which will be needed in some minutes. In the northeast corner of Cerulean City is a Rocket Grunt, who gives us Team 28 dig after the battle. The TM is not a big deal, but it is useful a little bit later. South of Cerulean City is Road 5, which leads to the underground path to Road 6. Here we find a Citrus Berry, which recovers 30 HP. Pretty nice. Back to Cerulean City because we have some gym leader to defeat. Misty is the second gym leader and a water type specialist. Actually, it's a Staryu specialist, but you know what I mean. This battle is very dangerous because there are a lot of things which could go wrong. But Misty starts with Staryu against Goomba. 2 Nightshades are enough to beat Staryu, and we only saw Harden, which isn't good enough. Now comes Misty's ace, Stormy. It used Water Pulse and it dealt a lot of damage. Too much if you ask me. Confuse Ray hits and the fun begins. Citrus Berry basically restores all the HP back, and now we have to believe into the power of Agatha. Of course, Starmie hits itself in confusion. But what about next turn? And ouch, it hurt itself in its confusion again. Man, that's quite sad, isn't it? Another hit and Starmie is defeated. Misty's done in the first try, and I'm very happy about it. Was it lucky? Yes. Did we deserve it? Of course not. We received the Cascade Badge and move on. South of Route 6 is Vermilion City. He is also another gym leader, but before we can battle him, we have to enter SSN, which we are allowed to do so thanks to the ticket. Staying true to the dark side, we enter the kitchen and steal all the berries, which are Pecha Berry, Cherry Berry and Chesto Berry. And while we're here, we take the Great Ball as well. While beating up the passengers for money, Lakitu wants to evolve into Golbat. Even though Golbats aren't that great for the next gym, it will be very useful at the gym right after. And Koopa also wants to evolve into Arbok. In contrast to Lakitu, an Arbok will be very useful at the next gym. And who else is on the chip? The rival. The power increase from Nugget Bridge to SSN is not the same for him as for our team. He started with Pidgeotto again, while we started with Lakitu for a change of pace. But 2 wing attacks later and Pidgeotto is defeated, while using Sand Attack. Kadabra's next, and since I'm the worst player, I obviously play into Disable like a real beginner. Since Kadabra has Confusion, this might cost me a Pokemon here. Bite hits and nearly KOs, but we have to hope that 34 was the high roll, or that's it. But we get another 34 and beat Kadabra. That was intense, but totally my fault, no question about it. The rival chooses Raticate next, and we switch into Goomba because Raticate can't hit it. After several turns, Raticate is defeated. Wartortle is the last Pokemon and we test the damage with Nightshade, which hit below half, but Bite nearly destroys Goomba in return. That's enough, and we switch into Koopa for Intimidate. After some turns of biting each other, Wartortle is defeated and the rival is also done for now. I assumed the fight was a tad too greedy on my part, but it's fine. As a thanks for beating the rival, we receive HM01 cut from the captain, which we need in order to enter the gym in Vermilion City. We leave the SSN and wave goodbye to the ship. But now comes an issue. We can't get any more of Agatha's team and no one can learn cut. That's why I do something which I usually don't do. We catch an HM worker. But of course not just anyone will do. Going back to Route 24, we can find Weedles. Weedle itself can't learn cut, but Beedrill can. We catch the worm and name it Wiggler. Welcome to the team. After that we first evolve it into Kakuna and then into Beedrill. Now give him cut and we can go back to Vermilion City in order to challenge the gym and its leader Lieutenant Surge. Lieutenant Surge is an electric type specialist, but specialist is in air quotes. He started with Voltorb against Koopa. We just use Dig and are faster, which means Voltorb didn't stand a chance and is defeated in one hit. Next is Pikachu and we are still faster, which means hitting with Dig is a safe KO, since it's a Pikachu. Last is Surge's ace, Raichu. It's faster and uses Double Team, my absolute favorite move in the game. We still hit and deal a lot of damage. Super Potion heals the right up and we dig underground again. Hitting as well because Agatha's team doesn't care. We see Shockwave for the first time and oh boy, it dealt a lot of damage. A crit of course. Another dig, another hit, and we win. To be honest, one miss would have meant that Koopa would evolve into Dry Bones, if you know what I mean. Lieutenant Surge is defeated, and we receive both the Thunder Badge and TM34 Shockwave, which might play a role later, or maybe not. With the third badge, we can move east of Cerulean City onto Road 9, which leads to Road 10 and the Rock Tunnel. Inside Rock Tunnel, Goomba evolves into Haunter, a very huge upgrade to the team. After leaving Rock Tunnel, we are back onto Road 10, which leads to Lavender Town. This town will be very important in a bit, but until then, we leave west to Road 8. Here we find a little garden, and of course we steal anything we can. We find a raspberry, a leperberry, and a lumberry. They might be important for later, but for now, we move further west into the underground path, which leads to Route 7 and Celadon City. In the apartment building, we find a nice old lady and a nice cup of tea, which we take with us, for reasons. East of Celadon City, we can use the tea to bribe our way into Saffron City and receive TM29 Psychic from Mr. Psychic. It's one of the most important damaging moves for this run. In fact, it's so important that we return to Route 24 in order to beat up Abras until we find the one which holds the Twisted Spoon. That item boosts Psychic type attacks by 10%, which will be used a lot. Back in Celadon City, we can finally challenge the gym leader Erika, a grass type specialist. Unfortunately for her, our team basically consists of counter picks to her team, so the battle will be quite interesting. She starts with Victreebel and we start with Lakitu, a poison and flying type. Lakitu uses wing attack and deals a lot of damage, while Victreebel uses stun spell which misses. Another wing attack and Victreebel is done. Next is Tangela, but a single wing attack is enough. Last is Erika's ace, Vileplume. Wing attack hits and does a lot of damage again, while Vileplume uses stun spell which misses again? She was already at a disadvantage, but yeah, sure, I take that. Vileplume is done after some turns thanks to Hyper Potion. Erika is defeated while we didn't even receive any damage. As a thanks, Lakitu is evolving. I wasn't sure if that's a good idea or not, but I thought, why not? The most important battle for Lakitu is done, and Crobat is a cool Pokemon, right? After that we received a new badge and TM19 Giga Drain, which will be used with Goomba right away. Because in Celadon City is also the Gamba Den, the Game Corner, and of course the greedy Team Rockets are here as well, getting a cut on the winnings. Down in the basement is the Team Rocket hideout, and on the 4th floor is the Gamba King himself, Giovanni. We want to stop the insanity, but he wants to fight instead. Starting with Onix against Goomba. With the new learned Giga Drain, Onix is just a one-hit anyway. Kangaskhan is next, but we switch into Lakitu and use some wing attacks to beat the parent Pokemon. Rhyhorn is his last Pokemon, and we switch back into Goomba to use the Giga Drain to defeat the ground and rock type in one hit. That Giovanni defeated, but before he runs with his tail between his legs, he loses his Silph Scope, which is needed for two reasons: continuing the story and catching a new teammate. Back in Lavender Town is the Pokemon Tower, and before we can get all the good stuff from here, we have to beat up the rival again. He never learns, but something changed. He started Pidgeotto against Goomba, and Goomba has a new trick up his sleeve, Thunderbolt. It's obtainable in the Game Corner and basically the strongest electric type attack in the game. Thunder has more power, but never hits, ever. The bird is down after one hit. Execute comes next. The eggs are part psychic, which means Shadow Punch deals a lot of damage. They use Hypnosis, but it misses. I was never that lucky before, I think. I wonder how long that will last. Execute is defeated. Kadabra is chosen next, but we are faster, and Ghost is physical in this generation, which means Kadabra is down after a single hit. This specific interaction will be very important later on. Wartortle is next, but Thunderbolt cleanly defeats it in one hit. Last is Growlithe, but I don't think it can do anything here, and it's defeated after another Thunderbolt. With that, the rival is defeated and we can move on in the Pokemon Tower. Up the tower we find another teammate, Gastly. I understand we already have a Gastly, which means we are not allowed to get another one, right? But Agatha is well known to have multiple of it. In fact, most of the times she has 2 Gengar and a Haunter. So we catch another Gastly and call it Blooper from now on. The Pokemon Tower is great for training, since Gastly are done in one hit most of the times and increase special attack. After a while Goomba is evolving into Gengar. I can already hear the "another impossible evolution?" But of course! Agatha's ace is a Gengar, so of course we want one as well, right? Blooper also evolves into Haunter, but it is a bit special. We won't train it just like that, but maximize the speed and attack, not special attack. That sounds weird at first, but keep in mind the biggest hurdle to overcome in this challenge is called Alakazam. If we are not fast enough and one-hit it, we just don't win. With that out of the way, we can move up the tower, beat the Ghost Marowak. Very interesting that the Alolan Marowak is part Ghost, just saying. At the top of the tower are some Rocket Grunts, who didn't stand a chance against us. After that, we rescue the old man Mr. Fuji. He doesn't know what we are talking about and gives us the Pokeflute to leave him alone. We gladly accept and move on. West of Celadon City is the sleeping Snorlax, who is not happy that we woke it up, but we flee the first chance we get. Further west is Route 16, which leads to Route 17 or the Cycling Road. At the end of Cycling Road is Route 18 and Fuchsia City. Fuchsia City is well known for two things, the Safari Zone and Koga, the gym leader. In the Safari Zone is nothing really relevant to us, but HM03 Surf. After getting it, we challenge the gym leader Koga, the poison type specialist. Even though we kind of have the same title, I think he uses a different strategy. He starts with Coughing against Goomba. We use one Psychic and Coughing is defeated. Muk is next and we hit it with another Psychic and it KOs thanks to a crit, which mattered. Another Coughing, another Psychic and another one-shot. Last is Koga's ace, Wheezing, and it survived the Psychic, but it can't do anything against a Gengar, so we beat it in some turns anyway. That's Koga defeated and the title for Poison Specialist comes back to us. We don't have many things left to do until the next big battle, but we evolve Blooper into Gengar, which will be very much needed in the next battle. And get another Thunderbolt TM from the game corner, which will be used on Blooper. With that out of the way, we can enter Silphco, since Team Rocket misunderstood the term hostile takeover and went in full force. Of course we want to teach little boy Giovanni a lesson and move in. But the rival stands in our way again. I assume he doesn't understand how much stronger we are. He starts with Pidgeot against Blooper. One Thunderbolt is enough for the flying type, and it's defeated. Execute comes next but has no chance against Shadow Punch. And now comes Alakazam, and here we see the reason for Blooper's existence. It looks boring because Alakazam is defeated in one hit, but without all the status buffs and additional speed we would most likely just lose. Blastoise comes next and we hit hard with Thunderbolt. Bite deals some damage, but it's not enough to worry. Another hit and Blastoise is also defeated. The Thunderbolt TM is so good. Last is Growlithe, but we switch into Lakitu and the hot dog is defeated after some wing attacks easily. That's it for the rival and he runs away crying. As a thanks we receive Lapras, which we only borrow from Lorelei in order to use Surf. Without it, the run wouldn't be possible at all. So, thank you Lorelei, really appreciate it. Afterwards we can finally confront the boss of Team Rocket, Giovanni. He is still here, but not for long. Giovanni started Nidorino against Cooper, but using Dick twice is enough to beat it, losing only a small amount of damage. Kangaskhan comes next and I feel like switching to Blooper because Kangaskhan seems not to be able to use a move which could hit it. After some Thunderbolts it is defeated. Next is the ground rock type Rhyhorn, which we don't have any moves against anymore since I felt so smart to remove Giga Drain already. Anyway, we switch it to Cooper and use Dig, but it doesn't even do half, but we get nearly destroyed by Rhyhorn. So we need to switch again into Blooper and beat it in 2 turns with Shadow Punch. Last is Nidoqueen, but it can only hit us with Poison Sting, which does no damage. It takes some turns, but the second best Nido is defeated, and that means Giovanni is done. The Silphco is rescued and as a reward we received the Master Ball, which we indeed used this run. The next gym leader is Sabrina in Saffron City. It's a Psychic type specialist. But unfortunately for Sabrina, we have Blooper, basically an assassin trained to beat Psychic types. She started with Kadabra, but it's removed from the battle after a single turn because of Shadow Punch. Mr. Mime is next and it's also a Psychic type, which means Shadow Punch completely destroys it as well. Sabrina shoots Alakazam next and that's a speed check. And we pass, being faster, and Alakazam is defeated. Last is Venomoth and nobody cares. It's done in some turns thanks to Lakitu. I'm very sorry but the run looks so easy because of Blooper. But let's be real, if Blooper would have been slower, we might have been back to Pallet Town. Sabrina's done, the March badge is ours and we can move on. Before going to the last stretch of the run, we return to Route 18 because here are Wild Fearos, which can hold sharp beaks. They boost flying type attacks by 10%, very useful in Lakitu. Back on Route 10 is a little bit of water, which we can surf on to reach the power plant. Here are Wild Magnetons sometimes holding magnets. Very nice items, because they boost electric type attacks by 10%, which will be very useful with Thunderbolts on Goomba or Blooper. Even though it was a joke, we are back at Pallet Town anyway because it's an easier route. Surfing south onto Route 21, which leads to Cinnabar Island, home to the 7th gym leader Blaine. Before we can face him, we have to venture into the Pokemon Mansion, and here we find another teammate, Koffing. Many may not know that, but Agatha had a Weezing in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, so we catch one here as well. With that, we throw a Master Ball to catch Koffing. We welcome Spiny, the Koffing, and last member to the team. I didn't know that yet, but it will play a big part later on. Deep inside the mansion is a secret key, which needs to be used in order to gain access to the gym. Blaine is a fire-type specialist. That doesn't really matter to us, because we only work with 3 different types, and besides Koopa's Dig, wait, that sounded wrong. And besides the move Dig on Koopa, we don't have any super effective moves. Blaine starts with Growlithe against Goomba. Our Gengar has Magnet equipped, which boosts electric type attacks, and one Thunderbolt is enough to beat Growlithe. Blaine's Ace Arcanine is next, and we use another Thunderbolt, which does over half. But Fire Blast misses, which might be huge. Another bolt, and the Fire Dog is defeated. Ponyta comes next, but it's defeated with one Thunderbolt as Growlithe. Last is Rapidash. Thunderbolt hits and did really good damage. But we see Fire Blast, which did nearly half HP. I assume Arcanine could have gotten a KO if it hits. Good thing it didn't. Another bolt and Rapidash is defeated. Blaine is out of Pokemon and we receive the 7th badge. Only one badge to go, but before we get it, Spiny evolves into Weezing. An interesting Pokemon, very hard to use in my opinion, but let's see how it works out. The final gym leader is Giovanni, the guy from before, ground type specialist. Out of our 6 Pokemon, 1 is not able to battle, 3 have Levitate, 1 is part flying and Koopa is also here. Giovanni starts with Rhyhorn against Goomba. Giovanni's team has nearly no special defense, which is quite sad against Goomba equipped with Psychic and Twisted Spoon. 1 Psychic and Rhyhorn is defeated. Next is Dugtrio, usually a very strong opponent, but today it's done in 1 hit. Nidoqueen comes next, but it's part poison and Goomba really likes poison types. She is down in 1 hit as well. Giovanni chooses Nidoking next and it has lower defense stats than Nidoqueen, which means 1 Psychic is also enough to beat it. The last Pokemon is Rhyhorn, and similar to the first one, 1 Psychic is also enough to beat it. That Giovanni defeated, and we earned all gym badges in order to attempt the Elite Four. Without any real detours, we try to reach the Indigo League, but the rival is already waiting for us on Route 22. He wants a final battle before the Elite Four, and we accept, of course. Pidgeot comes first against Blooper. As before, we use Thunderbolt and the bird is defeated in 1 hit. Alakazam comes next, but that's the reason we have Blooper in the first place, using Shadow Ball and our Faster, which tends to defeat Alakazam in 1 hit. Blastoise is chosen next, but we are not scared of it at all, using Thunderbolt, which crits and beats the turtle. I think the crit mattered, but I'm not complaining. Next up is Growlithe, but as last time we use 1 Thunderbolt and it's defeated. The rival chooses Rhyhorn next, and we need 2 Brick Breaks to beat it, but we receive a lot of damage thanks to Rock Blast, very annoying. Last is Execute and we use Shadow Ball, but it doesn't KO. But of course, Stun Spore misses, another Shadow Ball and the rival is defeated. Usually here starts my victory road talk, but I already gave you my answer to the question, who is my favorite Kanto Elite Four member? At first it should be Bruno, since he is free experience, but in reality it's Agatha, so here's the run. Arriving at the Indigo League, the final 5 battles of the run are waiting here for us. Lorelei helped a lot, but we have to give the Lapras back, because here we only use the real team. And as a thanks, we won't hold back against her at all. Lorelei is the first of the Elite Four, an Ice-type specialist. She starts with Dewgong against Goomba. A Magnet-equipped Thunderbolt easily destroys Dewgong in 1 hit. Slowbro comes next, but it receives the same fate, being destroyed after a single Thunderbolt as well. Lorelei's ace Lapras is next, and we use Thunderbolt to remove it like the first 2. But it survived, and uses the Confuse Ray, one of the more annoying moves in the game. So we switch out into Blooper and see an Ice Beam. Actually, it's better this way, because Lapras is down in 1 hit. Cloyster is next and has a very low special defense, which means a single Thunderbolt beats it as well. Last is Jinx, but it has no defense and is part Psychic, exactly what Blooper looks for. Jinx is down after a single Shadow Ball and Lorelei is defeated. The second of the Elite Four is Bruno, a losing specialist. Maybe I should not make fun of him, since he is able to beat the game in a hardcore Nuzlocke, and Agatha didn't do it at this point in time. Bruno starts with Onyx against Goomba. Onyx has a low amount of special defense and loses to a single Twisted Spoon boosted Psychic. Hitmonchan comes next, and the only difference to Onyx is that Psychic is now super effective and the Boxer is down. Next is the second Onyx, but similar to the first one we use Psychic and Onyx is defeated. Bruno's ace Machamp comes next and we just use Psychic and it survived. Barely. But we see Bulk Up, which essentially does nothing here. Some turns later Machamp is defeated as well. Last one is Hitmonlee, but it doesn't even have a move against Goomba and is defeated after one Psychic. That is the weakest Elite Four member Bruno defeated. Next is us from the future, the Elite Four member Agatha, a poison type specialist. I really want to tell you how epic the battle was, but since she realized that we are basically the same person, she lets us win, just like that. We used Goomba and press on Psychic 5 times until the team is defeated. Since we are faster, there isn't even a single move used from the opposing team. Now, the playtime is over, and the final Elite Four member Lance, the Dragon Master, is here to beat us. He is very dangerous, because we do not have an Ice type attack, which means the dragons are very hard to beat. He starts with Gyarados against Goomba. Of course we are faster, and Thunderbolt KOs the Water Snake very easily. Next is Aerodactyl, but we are still faster, thanks to the 5 levels overhead, and one Thunderbolt KOs it as well. Lance chooses his ace Dragonite next. I don't know how the damage works out, so we use Thunderbolt, which did below half. Dragonite uses Outrage, that should be fine. Wow, that's not fine at all. We switch into Spiny and tank a lot of damage. It was 3-turn Outrage and we are barely alive, using Sludge for a very small amount of damage. Dragonite is confused and we switch into Koopa, but we see Wing Attack for a lot of damage, even though we had Intimidate. Koopa uses Acid for some damage, but Dragonite doesn't care and uses Hyper Beam to completely destroy Koopa. Thank you, Koopa. We needed you and you did great. Blooper comes next and we use Thunderbolt, but it isn't enough. Oh no! Full Restore gets Dragonite back to full HP and Thunderbolt does about a quarter. We use another one, but Dragonite uses Safeguard, which is very nice of him, really. Another Thunderbolt puts it into the red, but Dragonite uses Outrage, which means he's locked into the attack and we can defeat it next turn. That Flying Dragon was way too strong for us. Next is Dragonair and we used Shadow Ball for some damage, but it used Dragon Rage for exactly 40 damage. Keep in mind, we need Blooper for the battle after that. We are not allowed to lose it here. Dragonair is defeated. The last Pokemon is another Dragonair and we switch into Lakitu. After some turns, Dragonair is defeated and with that, the Elite Four is done. It costed Koopa, but we had to do it in order to proceed. We are the final boss of the run, the Rival, who can't do anything. There isn't much to say now, so we begin. He starts with Pidgeot and we start with Blooper again, the same old matchup. We use Thunderbolt and Pidgeot is defeated. Now comes Alakazam and we will see if the setup worked out or not. We press on Shadow Ball and are faster, which means Alakazam is defeated. Arcanine comes next and that one can be a problem as well. We use Thunderbolt and it does less than half. The legendary dog uses Flamethrower and... oh my arceus, that's a lot of damage. Since Blooper is too good, we have to switch out into Spiny. Flamethrower hits and it does technically below half, even though we are in the yellow. I thought long and hard about it and just did it. Flamethrower hits and we are at 6 HP, but it's enough to use Spiny's final attempt to rescue the run. Explosion. Thank you, Spiny, you did what you were born to do. We use Goomba next and the Rival chooses Blastoise. We use Thunderbolt and Blastoise is nearly defeated, but we see Hydro Pump and I guess that's it for Goomba. Or not. Goomba barely hangs on and uses another Thunderbolt to defeat the water Pokemon for good. Now comes Executor. Since Goomba is too low in HP, we switch it to Lakitu and tank a Giga Drain. We use Wing Attack even though Fly deals more damage and we want the better hit rate. Sleep Powder is used and Lakitu falls asleep. We could try to wake up, but I felt that switching here would be better. And Blooper comes out to negate the Egg Bomb. One Shadow Ball is enough to beat the Palm Tree. Lars is Rhydon, and I thought this would be tough depending on the moveset, but it seems Rhydon is unable to hit the Gengar. And we win in some turns. Very anticlimactic. That's a rival defeated. We beat Fire Red with only Agatha's team in a hardcore Nuzlocke. I really liked the run, but to be fair, I like all Kanto runs. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more hardcore Nuzlocks in the future. And if you didn't like it, please subscribe to hate watch my next video as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.